Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Ayu-Ningsih from Polytechnic Batam. The title of my article is Effect of Investment, Trade Openness, and Labor Force on Economic Growth. Background. Economic growth is the process of increasing the average income of the population in the long run. Budiono 2001. The global economic growth rate in 2018 reached 3%, and in 2019 it was to 2.9%. Economic growth in developed countries has decreased by 2% and developing countries by 4.2%. As a developing country, Indonesia economic growth is predicted to decline in 2019, namely 5.1%. Lead economists for World Bank Indonesia said Indonesia must increase the value of export and investment. Ross 2013 argues that investment is needed for economic growth, and Tadaro and Stephen 2003 argues the labor is positive factor in economic growth. Scope of problem. This study used the 2016 until 2018 period with a sample of 33 provinces in Indonesia. The independent variables used are investment, trade openness, and labor force. The independent variable will affect growth economics as the dependent variable. Data sources were obtained from the Central Statistic Agency or BPS and the Investment Coordinating Board or BKPM. Next theory. First theory is classical economic growth theory from Smith. Smith argued that there are two main factors in a country's economic growth, namely total output growth or GDP and population growth. Output growth consists of three main elements, namely available natural resources or land production factor, human resource or total population, and available capital goods. Second theory is neoclassical economic growth theory. The theory of Roy F. Harrod and F. C. D. Domar in Arifin N.W. discuss the role of investment in the process of a country's economic growth. Investment is considered an important factor in the growth of a country because it has two roles at once. Next, hypothesis. Hypothesis 1. Foreign investment has a significant effect on economic growth in Indonesia. Hypothesis 2. Domestic investment has a significant effect on economic growth in Indonesia. Hypothesis 3. Trade openness has a significant effect on economic growth in Indonesia. Hypothesis 4. Labor force has a significant effect on economic growth in Indonesia. And last, hypothesis 5. Investment, trade openness, and labor force together have a significant effect on economic growth in Indonesia. Research variable. Investment proxied by the realization of domestic and foreign investment in Indonesia. Data obtained from the website of the Investment Coordinating Board. Trade openness proxied by net export in Indonesia. Data obtained from the official website of the BPS. Labor force proxied by the participation rate of the workforce aged 15 years and over in Indonesia. Data obtained for the official website of the BPS. Economic growth proxied by the growth of gross regional domestic product or GRDP based on constant base price in 2010 according to employment. Data obtained from the official website of BPS. Sampling technique. The sampling technique used in this study was purposive sampling technique. The prerequisite criteria used in sampling are provinces that have data from all variables in the 2016 until 2018 timeframe. Based on this criteria, the sample used in this study is 33 provinces in Indonesia. Next research method. Data collection technique. Using archive data in the database using the official BPS website in www.bps.go.id and the official BKPM website, namely www.bkpm.go.id. Data processing techniques. Using computerized calculation techniques using the SPSS 22 program. Data analysis technique using simple and multiple linear regression using the SPSS 22 program. Classic assumption test. First, heterokedasticity test, and second, multicollinearity test. The statistical test. At a confidence level of 5% or 0.05. The criteria for the statistical t-test is if significant smaller than 0.05, then null hypothesis is accepted and vice versa. F statistical test. At a confidence level of 5% or 0.05, the criterion for determining the result of the F test is by comparing the significant value. If significant smaller than 0.05, then null hypothesis is accepted and hypothesis 1 is rejected. Heterokedasticity test. Based on the table above, it can be seen the significant value for each independent variable is greater than 0.05. So, it can be concluded that the regression model doesn't contain heterokedasticity. This result indicates that the data is not homogeneously distributed so that it is suitable to be used for conducting regression tests. Next, multicollinearity test. Based on the table above, it can be seen that the p-value for each variable is not greater than 10. Thus, it can be concluded that the variable doesn't contain multicollinearity with other independent variables and it's suitable for use in conducting regression tests. Data analysis. First, foreign investment. Hypothesis 1. Based on the result of the statistical test, this result indicates that hypothesis 1 is not supported. So, it can be concluded that there is an insignificant influence between foreign investment on economic growth in Indonesia. The cause of this insignificance can be caused by the use of foreign capital for development, which is often not well targeted. Investments that are not prioritized on creating jobs for the workforce maximally, which will have an impact on economic growth in Indonesia. Next, domestic investment hypothesis 2. Based on the result of statistical tests, this result indicates that hypothesis 2 is not supported. So it can be concluded that there is not significant effect between domestic investment on economic growth in Indonesia. Domestic investment has an insignificant negative effect because investment can reduce the amount of saving created in the future of the Indonesian people, increase the level of consumption. This will increase the amount of availability of consumer goods and will not reinvest the profits. This is also due to the unequal value of investment that is divided across all provinces in Indonesia, and this domestic investment doesn't touch the layers of society, which mean that domestic investment is carried out more in capital incentive form, which doesn't use much human labor. Hypothesis 3. Based on the result of the statistical test described above, this result indicate that hypothesis 3 is supported. So it can be concluded that there is a significant negative effect between trade openness on economic growth in Indonesia. This is because Indonesia needs import activities to fulfill export. Meanwhile, on the import side, it is not well managed, resulting in a deficit in the trade balance, and this will make Indonesia flood of imported goods without producing products that can be re-export. The trade war between America and China has also contributed to the weakening of export values. The trade war had an impact, namely the global economic slowdown, which caused the price and demand for commodities of export for Indonesia to slow down even further. Hypothesis 4. Based on the result of the statistical test described above, this result indicate that hypothesis 4 is not supported. So it can be concluded that the labor force has not significant effect on economic growth in Indonesia. The increase in the number of workers has an insignificant effect due to the lack of labor productivity, which caused a decrease in the amount of GRDP in 2017 amounting to 5.6 trillion. It can be concluded that only the number of workers has increased, but the level of productivity hasn't changed. On the contrary, the amount of GRDP has decreased. Hypothesis 5. Based on the result of the statistical test described above, this result indicate that hypothesis 5 is not supported. So it can be concluded that there is not significant influence between foreign investment, domestic investment, trade openness, and labor force on economic growth in Indonesia. Conclusion. The variable of foreign investment and labor force has an active effect but are not significant on economic growth. The trade openness variable has significant effect but is negative, and the domestic investment variable has a negative and insignificant effect. Okay, thanks for listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.